Troy Galloway is a construction manager and consultant, commercial and residential builder, and a certified inspector for all commercial and residential buildings. And now, here is About the House with Troy Galloway.
Well, hello, folks. Welcome back to About the House. This is your audio university on everything about your home, from construction, remodeling, home improvements, everything that's home and building related. And because of the way we got it set up with the podcast and the YouTube channel, you can go back and check any of our shows out. We try to, every one of our shows, what we try to do is put forth either a product or information about a specific trade, which we're on a trade here today, and it's called About the House. And just like this radio show, I own Galloway Building Services, and we're one of a kind. And we provide services for folks throughout the Midwest every day that nobody else does. And that's what makes us absolutely unique from all the other type of home inspection company or building inspection companies. Because we also, what we do is we help with construction consulting. So if you have any questions about your job, if it's being done correctly or not, or if you want a new construction inspection, say if you're building a home or you're getting a remodel project and you just want to make sure that it's being done right, you give us a call. We also do commercial and residential building inspections. So if you're buying or selling either a building or if you're buying or selling a home and you want to make sure that you know what you're getting, you give us a call. And we also do, and heaven forbid if this happens, but unfortunately it happens more than we want, we do conflict building resolutions. What we do is expert witnessing. We come in and evaluate the situation, write up a report, and hopefully when it's all done and said for, you can get your job back on the right, straight and narrow. And we've been doing this now for 42 years. Our motto of our company is that you're getting what you paid for, it's being done right, and you're not getting ripped off. I smile because it's hard to think about getting all three of them that actually work at the same time. But give us a call. Galloway Building Services, and I'm Troy Galloway, and our office number is 636-394-3112. Hey, we got a really great show today, and I'm really excited to share it with you folks. This is something that I've been wanting to get on the air for a long time because it's very confusing. And what we're having here is it's a sewer lateral, not just inspection but cleaning. And we want to talk about this. And I have one of the leaders in, well, not just Missouri but Illinois. So he travels, and a great guy to know, Chris Schad, spell it.
Seweroscopy.
All right. Well, like jump right in there. Yeah. I guess I just hurt so dadgum bad I don't want to say it out loud. Well, Chris, jump right in here. Tell us a little bit about your company and who you are and what kind of got you into this.
Okay, Troy, thank you. So my name is Chris Schad. I got into this because a good friend of mine, his father was a plumber for many years, semi-retired. So we got talking one day, and he said, there's a real need in our market for a good sewer lateral inspector and somebody that does cleanouts properly. He's a super nice guy, owned A Alpha Plumbing for many, many years over on Arsenal. So long story short, I bolted myself to him and spent about 4 months just, shadowing everything he did. And he taught me everything about the trade and what to purchase, how to go about it, and how to take care of the customer and help them understand this kind of, I don't want to say silent system, but it's a secret system. It's one of those systems in your home that when it's performing well, everything's going fine. The minute it starts misbehaving, then you're backing up in your basement or, the drain in your slab home or crawl space, and it can be a real problem real fast. So we take it seriously. We always start on the front end as far as making sure the inspection is done properly. We let you know what the system's made out of, how far the sewer main is away from the home, so if there's any kind of collapse or failure, we'll let you know that. We'll locate it for you above ground so you can take the next step to have it repaired. And a lot of times in the old systems, they just need a good clean out. Some of the homes we look at are 60, 70, 80 years old, and those systems have been performing well for a long time, but you get roots in them or you get things in there that maybe shouldn't be in there, and a lot of times they'll just create an obstruction. So we have the tools and equipment to go in there and take care of that, get that stuff out of there, and then we'll put the camera back in to make sure we can see the main again. So we always try to go the extra mile to make sure the system will perform as it was designed.
And that's awesome. And I'm glad that you hit on them points, because I think there's a lot of folks. Of course, this is just one of them nasty areas that we don't want to talk about, but we know how important. It's absolutely important, but not just for drainage, but health reasons too. But explain to the folks, because I know when I do inspections, sometimes people they misunderstand just what a sewer lateral is. They have this idea that it's every pipe in the house. Well, kind of explain to them what you're doing out there, and so they know what's happening.
Sure, that's a great question, Troy, and a great point. So your sewer lateral is really the segment of the system that leaves the home and connects either to a sewer main or in some cases a septic system, right? Mm-hmm. So all the pipes you describe, so it usually starts with your main stack. That'll be your biggest stack, coming, what's coming out of the toilet and maybe what's coming out of the drain, the vanity sink, or the bathtub. Some homes will have multiple main stacks. The bigger homes will, so that's not uncommon. You'll have a kitchen stack in many cases, so that's your kitchen sink. So that usually the newer homes will have one dedicated just to the kitchen stack. So all these stacks, if you will, and a stack is nothing more than a pipe coming down from either the first or second floor. Nothing exotic, but it'll be a pipe. Usually 3 inches is the standard. Most of the time it'll be 4. And that's coming down from the living space, connecting down to the sewer lateral, and then taking that, whatever you put into that, out of the home to either the sewer main or the septic system, wherever it properly discharges.
So just a real fast recap, it's everything you don't see.
Exactly.
The way of saying it.
Right.
And,
your laundry standpipe, right? As you discharge your wash machine, that's going to come down the stack and into the sewer lateral.
Well, tell folks how many, because we have all these extra vent pipes, especially on the larger homes. Mm-hmm. How many sewer laterals are underneath the home that's going out? Tell the folks.
Yeah, that's a great question. So most of the time, it's just one main one. Most of the time. Larger homes may have a couple, but they'll ultimately connect to each other, usually heading out the home. There'll be one connection. It can be wired in or it can be teed in, but most of the time there's one connection heading out to the sewer main. And if you look in the front of the house, a lot of times you'll see a manhole cover running up the middle of the street or in your yard or in your neighbor's yard. Most of the time those are set up about every 100 feet. You'll see a manhole cover. And that's the sewer main. So you're connecting to that main from your home through your sewer lateral. And oftentimes there'll be what we call a cleanout or a vent stack or a yard trap between your home and that sewer main. And it's just another access point into the system.
Okay. That's what I was going to ask you. Yeah. So that's why you tell how far it is. Is that correct?
That's right. So when we do the inspections, it's really important to say, okay, I'm going to go from the main stack in the home. I'm going to advance my camera all the way to the sewer main. And if I can't, what's between me and the sewer main? Is it a yard vent? Is it a yard trap? And they're a little different. And they're designed a little different and they perform just a little different function. But we want to make sure we identify that. I see a lot in our market that the yard traps are buried. We find a lot of buried yard traps, and I'm sure you have as well. I'll always put in my report, it's a good idea to get that exposed above grade, because at the end of the day, it's another critical point in the system that needs to have some exposure, because you may need to get in there with some cleaning cables or a camera or just to make sure what's going on in there. So we see a lot of that. So if you go to purchase a home and the report says it's a buried yard trap or vent, it's a really good idea to negotiate with your seller or your seller's agent to say, hey, let's get this opened up. Right. I really need to have this opened up to me above grade because it's a critical component of the system.
I'm sure you've seen this too over the years, but I have observed countless times where they actually put a tree right there where they do the clean, and then of course the tree roots and everything grows up around it, and then it's underneath the tree.
Yep.
And they thought the tree was the marker.
Oh, absolutely. We see that all the time, and it's not a really good idea to do that because...
Dumb idea.
Dumb
we just
idea.
go straight to
it. And here's the biggest reason. Predominantly what we put in these systems is nitrogenous waste. Okay.
Explain to the folks what that means. That's a big word.
Nitrogenous
I know
is
what it means, but
your number ones and your number twos, right?
Right, for us working folks.
Right. So that's basically it. It's nitrogenous waste. And at the end of the day, if you think about what fertilizer's made out of, and now you add a constant water supply to this pipe, these trees see this as a Chinese buffet, man. They want to be in there on a regular basis, and that's why they get in there. So it's not uncommon. And a lot of the older systems will have clay pipe, right? The 6-inch clay. The construct for that is what we call bell and spigot. So you got this big bell, if you will, and the pipe slides into it. That's a bell and spigot connection. It's not a perfect mechanical connection like you'd find in PVC or ABS, right? It's just not very tight. And as a result, the roots can get in there very easily. So it's really important to know the condition of those systems before you sign on the dotted line. You know, one of my worst days is I get a call. I get a call from a lot of insurance companies.
Oh, I bet.
You know, homeowner hasn't been in the house for 2 weeks, and they've already gotten it back up in the basement, you know? And the inspection wasn't done, or it was done incorrectly. And, you know, you want to take the luster off your new home purchase in about 2 seconds. Go downstairs and have your floor drain backing up with sewage or water or whatever. It's just not appealing, and nobody wants that to happen. So it's really important to make sure you get those inspections.
Well, you did mention the clay pipe, and to tell the folks about, because I don't think they understand clay is no longer being used.
No, it's not.
Why.
Yeah, that's a great point. Right. So in about the early to mid '80s, we came out with plastic piping, PVC. A little later on, ABS. So ABS is predominantly black unless they paint it. That's how you kind of tell the difference between the two. Just a different compound for the structure of the pipe. PVC is something, and ABS is something else. So those are going to be in your newer systems. If you have to have a repair, it's going to be that as well. Nobody's going to go back and use the old terracotta clay, and that's really what it is. It's terracotta clay pipe. It was manufactured usually in 2 or 4 foot sections. So that's what you'll see underground. And they just kind of shift around in the soil. So again, the bell and spigot's not a really tight connection. Roots can get in there very easy, and it'll crack and break sometimes very easily too, because it is clay. If you think about, you know, just a clay pot, right, that you'd buy at the local store, it's the same component. It's just clay. A lot of times in homes I've seen 100 years old, everything is fine. They've held up really, really well. But it's knowing that it's held up really, really, that adds the value to what I do for a living, right? At the end of the day, you want a report in your hand that says, hey, I've seen the sewer main. Here's where it's at. I've pulled my camera back. I've narrated through it. I've told you where you might have some settling, where you might have some roots, where you might even have a crack. But at the end of the day, those reports are really, really important. So make sure you're getting those inspections done.
So on your on your clay tile pipe, it also deteriorates.
It absolutely does.
And I think people think that just only that.
Yep.
Well, it gets weaker by the deterioration. And like you said, it's clay.
It's clay, and for a while, as you well know, Troy, there was some what they call orange burrow pipe, and this was a different construct than terracotta clay. So now water got into it, and it will deteriorate. You'll see orange burrow deteriorate. So, that's when you have just openings in it, or you have collapses in it. And that's a bad situation, because you won't know as the homeowner in most cases when that's occurred without doing an inspection.
No, and people think it only collapses from the top, but it collapses from, But I've heard some, of course, folks, I want you to know out there that this is why we got Chris on the air today, because sadly, this is an industry that has a lot of charlatans in it, and they're just not professional people. And I cannot tell you how many times I've heard, Chris, where they say, well, it collapsed at the bottom, so it's all right. Well, I mean, just thinking of the weight itself, if it's collapsed anywhere, it's been weakened, right?
Absolutely.
And so to explain to the folks why being on bottom is
not good. I mean, that's not good.
It's a common sense thing, but
right.
But they get sold a bill of goods by somebody they respect, they think, and
right.
they trust. And
they
got a really good deal,
Right. At the end of the day, so one of the things we always look for is making sure we're not leaving the system. So if you collapse at the bottom, that sewage is now getting out into your yard, basically, and it will erode soil faster than almost anything, because you're putting a steady volume of water in there. A lot of times in the older homes in the city too, the downspouts still connect to the sewer lateral, right?
Right.
So now you've got a massive
Which
storm.
is no longer code.
No longer code. You know, if you have to make changes to the lateral because of a failure, you're supposed to immediately take your downspouts out and reroute them. But sometimes that always doesn't happen, right? So now I'm putting all this volume in there with a collapsed pipe. You're beginning to get sinkholes in your home. Water will go wherever it wants to go. And let's be honest, you've been around long enough to know the most violent thing done to a house is usually water of some kind, right?
It's got to.
You can have foundation issues. You can, adjust your footing. Now you're talking about piering. You can get belly cracks in the wall, and now you're talking about wall anchors. There's a variety of things that an abundance of water can do to a home that you just don't want to have to deal with. So if that pipe is open and it's collapsed at the bottom, that's something you want to immediately address. You do not want to be letting that water go in a road around your home and create issues for that foundation, because it will.
Yeah, and I know some of these guys are going to hear me say that, and they're going to say, well, why did you tell them that, Troy? Well, because it is, I always said, that's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. Just the engineering of its structure itself. If it's blowed out on the bottom, naturally, it's no longer got the structural integrity to hold itself. And then the washout. That's another thing.
Sure.
And and because we're on that subject, I kind of want to wander back into the house.
Okay.
And so, what type of piping are we using underneath there? It's not the I'll let you tell.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So a lot of times, trying the older homes, we're running into the old 4-inch cast iron. Mm-hmm. That was the prevalent go-to pipe for plumbers in our market for many, many years, and in many cases it's still good, right? So one of the things we always do when we perform inspections, we start running water. I kind of go in with the intent in the home to try to break it. At the end of the day, hey, I'm defending my buyer agent or buyer, so I would want to know if it's not going to perform if I was buying the home. So that's how I treat it. So we run a bunch of water. So I'm looking up into the stack and into the floorboards. Are we leaking anywhere, right? Are we leaking anywhere in the cast iron? Now, one of the things we run into all the time is they used to either put an old brass or lead cap on those cast iron pipes, and you've seen it 1,000 times. Well, if that hasn't been removed since that stack was put in place, it's not coming off by anything I do with a pipe wrench. So we carry the Sawzall. We can cut them off if we need to. And I have a graveyard of caps in the truck. I'll try to put one in place. But a lot of times, if I can, I'll just end up going on the roof. We're not, I didn't share with you, I'm a retired military firefighter. So roof work doesn't slow me down at all. And I train my colleagues to work with me, safe ladder, how to use a ladder around a house, what roofs we can get on if the pitch is not too crazy. So then you can just go on up through the roof vent, right? Mm-hmm. We'll drag our equipment up on the roof vent. We'll find a power source and get the extension cord up there, and we'll come in through the roof vent. That way we don't have to disturb that cap. We don't, a lot of times, you start really wrenching on it, the connections of the old cast iron can start leaking on you too, right?
Oh, yeah.
You see that
shake it. And,
now you've created a problem.
Right? I got to tell a story about that, because there is one company out here that a lot of the real estate agents use. We're not going to talk about who they are, but they're horrible, and they always come up with wild crap. Well, one time they had one that they had went down from the roof, just like you said, and they was getting ready to close on the house. The seller was getting ready to close. Well, they had this odd sound in the bathroom, and they couldn't figure out where this odd sound is. So I was called to go over there to look, because we do construction inspections. So they thought, well, maybe they broke some. Well, and I'm not a small fella, so I'm stomping around up in the attic, and I can't figure it out. Where I see where it's where they came in from it. Well, what happened was because when they came in from the top, they kind of loosened it up a little bit. So when the wind blew, it kind of moved that stack pipe, but it was squeaked.
That's right.
But I was heavy enough that when I stepped on, I fixed it.
Good for you. Good for you.
I saved the day.
Saved the day. Saved the day.
Oh, but yeah. So getting up there on the roof tell us the disadvantage of going on the roof. Is there any disadvantages?
You got to be careful. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm taking some heavy equipment up there. I usually take my associate with me, so we're both on the roof. And sometimes if it's an older roof or the roof is not in good repair, And sometimes the plywood's thinner than we'd like. You've seen all
the
these
old
things,
3/8s
right,
we used to use for years.
And it starts to bow over the trusses and everything. So you just got to be cautious. Use good common sense and kind of sound the roof a little bit before you get too daring. And sometimes the pitches are just prohibitive as well. Right? We'll try our best to get to the vent if we can't get in. And sometimes, and you know this, the main stack's walled in the finished basement.
Yeah, that's more often than not.
We can't. We couldn't get into it if we wanted to.
Especially when it comes to mobile homes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, which I understand that a lot of the times that once you talk about that is go through the toilet.
We go through the toilet. We can pull the toilet and go through the toilet if necessary. A lot of times in the mobiles and the slabs, though, if they did it right, there may be a clean out in the yard. So you got to do a pretty good job of kind of walking the foundation area. If you have a good idea from where the manhole cover is in the street or in the back easement, where the main is, then you got a pretty good idea to walk around. I know plumbers years ago, and I think some still do this, they used to aim the cap.
We still do.
Yeah, at the sewer main.
I'm a builder, so we still. Okay. That's still an old trick.
All right, and that kind of helps us give me an idea where to go look.
We hope that we always do. Some of these new guys, they don't.
Well, and sometimes it puts the cap in a really inconvenient way because the carpenter's just trying to finish, he's just trying to frame this out and do the job and finish the basement. It's like, well, I got no chance of getting the camera in there because here's the wall and there's the cap and I can't do it, so a quarter turn would have been helpful, at least in that scenario. Mm-hmm. We see that frequently, but we'll try. One of the things that's kind of funny is when we get up on the roof, it gives us a bird's eye view of where the cleanout might be or where the yard trap might be.
That's a good point. That's a great point there.
So it's like, oh, there it is, because you get leaves if there's a lot of trees in the yard or if it's snow covered. You might accidentally walk by the yard vent bringing the equipment in. But once you get on the roof, then you got an opportunity to kind of walk to the edge a little bit and see. It's like, oh, that's clearly a yard vent. We can get in down there if we need to. So
now in the old cast iron, so we know that the clay deteriorates. Well, so tell us about the deterioration, natural deterioration that does occur with cast.
Absolutely, and you see a lot of iron oxide in there. Just basically rust, Troy. You're going to see it. And I was in one the other day where it had collapsed. And sadly, the lady had only been in the house for 3 months. And in this case, the report came back good. It's like, no, there's no way this happened in 3 months.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, when that occurs, if it's fully collapsed, as you got to jackhammer up the floor. You really don't have a lot of solutions. Now, if it's cracked, or if there's, one of the solutions I kind of like is what they're doing new. And I know you've heard of this. You've got your inserts.
Mm-hmm, right.
You see that a lot, but they're doing resin lining now.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Seen the resin lining.
And I'm hoping to have one of them fellas in the industry here.
I know a few, so we can have that conversation. But to me, the resin lining is a nice solution. You don't have to jack it. Now, again, not every pipe's going to meet that criteria, right? It can't be completely collapsed or failed because you pretty much at that point got to jackhammer
once
it
it's
up.
Done, it's done.
It's done. But if it's a crack, a lot of times in my reports, I'll tell you, even in clay, I'll see a crack. Okay. I really can't tell you how long that crack's been there. It could have been there from the second day the home was constructed, quite frankly. I will mention it in the report. I will locate it for you out in the yard, and I'll say, hey, look, you've got a crack in the pipe. Nothing appears to be leaving the system, right? But be mindful of this, and I would encourage you to have an annual inspection just to keep an eye on it.
That's a good point. I'm glad you said that, especially if you got an older, system. It's cheaper to have you out there than having one of these companies coming out and cleaning up that nasty backup. Well, we don't want to talk about that, but and the health, and so so because of the type of inspections that we do, construction inspections, and we do them for lawyers and such for health reasons and things, we have literally found broken pipes underneath this home, and the sewer gas waters are going everywhere. Honestly, I even got videos of this. It's so bizarre that it's leaked into the sump pit. Ugh. And so that if it's that,
sure,
that's good. And so there's
so unhealthy,
and it's poisoning the people in
absolutely.
the home, and they can't figure out what's going on. They go to the doctor, they spend a day or two at the hospital, and then they're fine. Doctors can't figure out what is going on.
Sure.
You're not allergic to anything. Yeah. Well, you are.
Right. Yeah.
So we see that now. We also see out there. We're seeing a lot more of these high energy efficient furnaces, and the condensate line, for some reason, we have not caught up in the Midwest to have the condensate filter.
Okay.
And so this water is caustic, and I'm bringing it to your attention.
No, that's a great point, because I see it in the floor drains all the time. They're always discharging in the floor drain.
Yeah, they discharge in floor drain without a filter, and then look at them floor drains. They just literally so if it literally rusted away, deteriorates it, what's it doing underneath the ground?
Absolutely.
So getting an inspection like what you're talking about and a filter, look at the savings of that.
Well, one of the things I know for a fact is there's something called the stack effect. So whatever's in your basement or crawl space, 50% of that is going to make it upstairs in your living space. So your point's excellent. If there's sewage down underneath your slab, 50% of the environment that's in that basement or crawl space is now up in your living space.
If not more.
And
then what happens is because we also do air infiltration and other types, that goes all the way up into the attic. Then it's really what it is, the feces. It gets stuck up stuck up into the insulation.
Yep, absolutely.
And then you now you got a trap up there, and you're capturing, and it's we could talk about that in other shows about how that happens, but that's why it's important. Right. That's why I so wanted somebody. No,
it's a great point, and to your point, if you've got a sick house, you're probably going to feel the effects of it, and that's a sick house. Let's be honest.
It is, and it's something simple. You don't cost that much.
No, it doesn't. Filters and taking care of business inspections, just knowing,
Now here's another one that we hear out there a lot, and that is, tell us about the PVC ABS pipe. About people say, well, that never deteriorates. Well, then I don't have to have a sewer lateral inspection. Do you think? Now I know better, but I want you to address.
No, it's a great point. First of all, because ABS and PVC have tighter tolerances, and you've done this, sometimes you'll put those two components together at a coupling, and you can't hardly get it apart, right? Oh, this is done. I'm good. I'll be the first to tell you, number one, roots will get into that pipe. If you don't glue them, they will get into that pipe. I guarantee it. So one of the things I always mention when I'm doing my lateral inspections in PVC, if I see the purple cleaning fluid, I get a little excited, because if you cleaned it, you more than likely glued it. But we see a lot of separations in PVC. They'll get loose, they'll get moving around. I was in one the other day, and they had to come apart. It was 82 feet. The main was at 165, so it was a really long pipe. But at 82 feet, right there to 90, it was discharging into the front yard. So we located it and, let the buyer know, hey, this is a conversation that you need to have with your agent so that they know that this needs to be dug up and repaired,
I don't think people quite understand the earth movement that we have here. We have the New Madrid Fault, and we've done some commercial inspections, where we kind of find out how come the cracking of the concrete.
Sure.
And so I did some research on one of our big box stores, and I did showed how much the seismic activity and how frequently it is. And then, of course, depending on the type of soil and the rock, how much. But
sure.
That, too, can shake it loose, But I also have seen where the builders, we got a lot of rock, they throw in big old boulders on top of there, and if it's like a Schedule 30 or something, crack, especially if it's cold.
Yep.
Or that big old clay frozen. You're not supposed to ever backfill with frozen dirt anyway, but Lord knows you got to keep working.
Absolutely.
Things happen that we don't like, and you probably see that all the time.
I was in one the other day in Granite City. Beautiful little home, center mass stack going out of it, all ABS, with a pool in the backyard. And as I went out there, I could see where the pipe had compressed and broken in several places because they dug that pool with the equipment that was sitting right on that lateral.
Oh,
that pressure from that heavy backhoe sat there, and I could see it because you and I both know when plastic will give and mold a little bit to the stones laying where the lateral lives. Well, when you start to see stones pop up through the bottom, that's a lot of weight. Something put a lot of weight on there. And as soon as I seen the pool, I knew exactly what occurred. And as it turned out, the buyer was very thankful, had a conversation with their agent, went and talked to the seller. Seller dug it up and replaced it, so they had a brand new pipe put in.
Well, see, folks, there's a lesson right there. I knew about heavy equipment on it, but swimming pools. So if you've got a swimming pool or you've had some excavation work done, that's another good reason to. even if you've been in the home, you've been there for a long period of time, have it inspected.
Yep. Locate that pipe. If you're going to put a pool in, locate your pipes. You know, you're going to call 1-800-DIG-RIGHT anyway.
But they don't look for this.
But they don't look for the lateral. They won't tell you where that's at. They won't put a camera in there and locate it. So do that additional step, and it may save you some heartache in the future.
Well, how far do you recommend that we have our lateral line going under the ground from the house to the sewers where it catches up with the main sewer line before you have a clean out? Do you have a recommendation, and why?
Usually, you know, it depends on the neighborhood, how it was laid out, Troy. If you're by yourself on a couple acres, your pipe might be 185 feet, right? That's a really, really long pipe, and it's going to adjust and move over time. So I'm going to recommend a clean out right off the foundation and then every 100 feet. It's just a good idea to get some access points into that system, because that way, you know, I carry 150 feet of cable with me. I carry 150 feet of 1.25-inch ProFlex cable. But on a 180-foot run, if there's no clean out opportunity for me to be there, and we're setting, a lot of times the roots will get in right before the sewer main, right at that connection. And I've seen it 1,000 times.
We see it all the time.
All the time. So I've got to have, if you're asking me to get 185 feet from the main stack with no clean out opportunity, I may not be able to assist you. So having that clean out put in there right outside the foundation and every 100 feet is a really good idea to make sure it can be managed.
So I want to make sure everybody knows that Chris just doesn't only inspect them, but he cleans them too. So he's a great contact for that, and which leads me to the next question. Cleaning out, when you do clean out, I mean, we hear the different sizes of bits, augers, whatnot. Explain to the folks what you recommend is for the best, because I see some of these clean out guys, 1 inch, they go through there and I don't know about you, but 1 inch, I mean, you'll be back out there at the end of the week.
Well, and even worse than that. So I'll tell you, I carry 1.25-inch cable, and I do that for a reason. You want to use the bigger equipment in the bigger pipes, right? Mm-hmm. You can use the smaller stuff in a sink stack. Most of your sink stacks, as you know, 1.5, 2 inches usually is the case. A 1/2 inch cable in that is fine. But what happens with these, and I've encountered them and I've had to pull them out. You put a 1/2 inch snake that you rented from Quality Rental or from, Home Depot's rental or something like that into these larger pipes. They catch on to something. They will octopus on themselves. Mm-hmm. So now they're doing this, right? And you're steady shoving in there and you've caught something, and then you sort of pull it back out and you snap a cable.
Yep. I was going to ask you about that.
I've run into snap cables a lot. I come from a long line of electricians.
Oh.
And my dad left me his fish tape. He's no longer with us. So on occasion, I've got a number 10 treble hook. I'll fish that down into the pipe, Troy, and I'll chase it with my camera so I can see what I'm doing.
Right.
And I've had success hooking onto a busted piece of cable and dragging it out of the lateral.
That's great to know, because we got some of our franchise type companies that just do clean out. They're notorious for this.
Oh, yeah.
They use the lesser material.
The lesser material. I've seen broken pipes in restaurants, broken cables in restaurants. I've seen broken cables in laterals. And it's just, not everybody should be in your lateral doing the cleanouts. If they've not done it before, they don't know what they're doing, it's a really bad idea. One of the things we do is we use a hand drill. And the reason we hook that up to our cable is it gives us the ability to feel. If we catch on to something, then we kind of know, okay, we're going to work this over a little bit, or we're going to, how is it advancing? Does it feel? The worst things we're seeing, and we'll talk about this, is these darn flushable wipes, man.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what kind of products out there? Sadly, a lot of folks they don't know.
They don't know.
So tell us, folks,
in their
what
defense,
are
it says flushable.
Yeah,
they're marketed as the next best thing.
Is that right? I guess I just grew
absolutely.
Up,
you can go to Walmart or any of the stores and buy a pack of flushable wipes a day. The problem with these guys is they don't disintegrate. There's a really good little video on YouTube that you can pull up that they took flushable wipes, makeup wipes, and toilet tissue, and they put it in an agitator. Within 10 seconds, the toilet tissue is gone. Mm-hmm. It just disintegrates. The other two, 24. 48, 72, 96. These things don't disintegrate. And when you put them down into the pipe, they get saturated and then they settle. And the next you use them, you settle one behind it. And the next in, and you settle. So pretty soon you've built an obstruction with these things. Okay? And then you ask me to come clean it out because I can't cut it. You talked about cutting heads. We carry a variety of cutting heads that go on the ends of our ProFlex cable. I go from spade heads. I usually start small. Let's just punch a hole in it and get it to drain.
Well, got drill a hole.
Exactly. Let's get it to drain, and then we can, based on if I get the camera in there, I can see what I'm working with. A lot of times they're roots, but if there are these flushable wipes, basically, for lack of a better image, it creates a giant Q-tip on the end of my cutting head.
Oh, yeah.
And then I got to be very careful, because now if it's in a 6-inch pipe, right? I found them out in the clay, or I found them out in the 6-inch PVC. Now I'm trying to pull that into the house and reduce it into a 4-inch cast iron or a 4-inch PVC.
Oh.
I'm trying to take this giant Q-tip I've created and put it into a smaller one. And sometimes we come up the stack, and now we're reduced to 3 inches outside the cap, right?
Right.
So when I know enough, and I train my associates, when you feel that, because it gets heavy, you can feel the difference between cutting roots and picking up these wipes.
Right.
Then we've got to extract everything. We can only kind of do it for a few minutes. Vacuum them all up, if you will, create our Q-tip, work that out, clean the cutting head off, and then go back in and try to vacuum some more out. Basically is how we go about that process. But if you want to use them, but put them in the trash can. Mm-hmm. Do not flush them.
And of course, naturally, folks, don't put them in a septic system.
No.
Of course, because this goes all over to, the Midwest. So we have a lot of folks still out on septic. And we actually got several folks in this area still and you work over in Illinois, you still see them. So what other products, we find that do not belong in there besides, small animals, which we've encountered some of that.
I've seen some fun things. It always brings a smile to my face. I've seen Christmas ornaments, golf balls, Matchbox cars, light bulbs. Here's what you got to know, folks. If your floor drain in the basement is uncovered, it's an attractive nuisance to children. To them, it's just a hole. They don't care. They just want to put something cool in there, and now it's gone, right? Well, it's not really gone. You've just started an obstruction in your pipe. So one of the most important things is really make sure your floor drains are covered properly. You and I kind of talked previously about, your condensation drain coming off your, a lot of people will connect that there. Or a lot of people will move the grate and start putting hoses into it, right? Because they don't want to take the time to really kind of adhere it to that grate. Keep that grate in place, guys, because if you don't, you can run into problems with things, being an attractive nuisance and things getting into the pipe that shouldn't be there.
Yeah, and also naturally feminine products.
Feminine products are great, and they don't disintegrate. We see them all the time. It's like one of the things we have to always remember, guys, in today's world. And I can't understand why, because we're on the biggest river in North America. But there's a lot of water reduction products that are now being put in the marketplace. So your shower head is less water than it ever was. Your sink, your toilet, and now will only discharge half the bowl, or half the tank, right? So you get to do it again. So we're putting less and less water in these systems, guys. And when we do that, you're never going to discharge anything completely to make it to the sewer main or septic system. So it's going to go halfway down the pipe and settle. And then you're going to do it again in a few hours. And you're going to do it again in a few hours. So a lot of times when we do our cleanouts, I'll go over and take the wash machine cold line discharge, because that usually has good pressure.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I'll run a garden hose into the main stack or into the standpipe wash machine and just put a lot of water in there, Troy. Just let the pipe really get irrigated. And then I'll use my equipment to really agitate what's in there, and we'll get it going. Sink stacks are another one. Garbage disposals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, garbage disposals. Yeah. So I want to make a distinction here. So I want to make sure the folks know, and back me up on this, Chris, is that, so you inspect everything underneath the ground, but that doesn't include anything that of our sewer pipes up or traps or anything like that that's up underneath the house. So folks, tell them how not to get mad at you, because that's not what you're hired to look at. That's a different animal.
At the end of the day, my equipment allow me to get into the main lateral, mm-hmm. and that's where everything is collected. But to your point, sink stacks are a great thing. Everybody kind of lives in this illusion that this garbage disposal does a really good job of grinding things up, and then it's gone magically. Well, it's really not gone. Depending on the volume of water that you put behind it, it's probably going to go down your sink stack, make that little 90-degree turn, and then it's going to settle.
Well, I was always told that, now tell me if it's true or not, but we're always told out here that this is your busiest season the day after Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Absolutely, man.
Because of the meal preparation and all this stuff.
Well, and you raise a great point, because rotting food is one of the worst odors you'll have in a home, because it doesn't, it's kind of unlike the waste we put in the toilet, because it's already processed. Rotting food takes some time to really rot. So in the sink stacks I've been in that are obstructed, you get in there and the smell is horrendous. And by the way, it's going to start coming up through your lateral and your floor drain and your standpipe for your wash machine in the basement. All of a sudden you've got an odor in the basement that you haven't had before. It could be your sink stack just full of food from the garbage disposal.
Right, and people think that them traps and water traps stop that from coming up. Well, not if they're full of this nasty debris.
It can get through there. It can absolutely get through there, especially like if you've got a downstairs shower. Right, a lot of times that is close to the lateral. The odor will come up through there, and you'll smell it in your basement. So it's okay to use your garbage disposal, but put a volume of water behind it. Let your cold water run for 5 minutes. Just discharge it out of there. And you'll make sure, it gets out of your sink stack, connects to your sewer lateral, gets in the bigger pipe, and then you got a better chance when you use your shower or your tub or your toilet, you'll be able to discharge that all the way out to the sewer main, and you'll reduce the chance of having a lot of problems in your system.
Well, let me ask you, so do you guys, I know you do the sewer cleanouts. Do you do any kind of like a sink trap cleanouts, or do you get into any of that? Or
we do. I carry a small hydrojetter with me.
Okay.
So a lot of times, I will, the way I go about my work is I always try to be as unobtrusive as I can. So if I got to go in through the kitchen, say your kitchen sink is backed up, we'll start at that trap, right? We'll go in a P-trap, we'll open it up. I'll try to run a cable down there, see if I can catch it. A lot of times the sink stack, if it's an old cast iron one, will have that brass cap we talked about earlier. I can cut that off, but I don't immediately want to go that far if I don't have to. I do use some chemicals from time to time, and I'll tell my customers, okay, I couldn't get it open with my cable. Let's run some chemical into it, a lye-based cleaner, if you will. Let's see if we can, because especially if it's more than likely in sink stack, it's probably grease and oil,
right,
and some food. Let's see if I can, use
Brillo
some enzymes.
pads.
Yeah, Brillo pads. Use some enzymes to kind of break that down and get it moving. But I stay in contact with my customer. How's it looking? Show me, did it discharge? If it discharged, okay, let's put another gallon in there, because now we can get exactly to the obstruction. But if not, I had one the other day, kept working with the customer. I said, okay, it's time to cut the lid off the kitchen sack down in the basement. We cut it off of there, and I got my hydrojetter in there, and we blasted it, and we blasted everything out of there and got it going. So.
Well, we run across one here just a few, right before the holidays, and no garbage disposal. And and actually it was one of my rental properties, and there was good people. I don't put garbage disposals on my rental properties just for that reason. But we got into that and it opened it up, and right underneath the kitchen sink, I mean, it was solid, clogged, black goo. I don't know what this was, but it stained your hands and it just stunk. And so, I mean, this is another good reason that we need to have you folks out here. I mean, all good intentions and everything, but they've lived there now for over 30 years.
Oh, wow.
So, as good tenants, and they, so that this naturally they just have built up. So if people think, well, I don't have this and have that. Well, no, you still got this and that happening, and you got to get it looked at.
There's some rules that you may, if you follow some simple rules, One of the things I also recommend, we talked a little bit about the laterals and roots, There's some decent products that you can use out there to help keep the roots at bay. Rootex foam is a good one. Any of the copper sulfate products is a good one. But it's like anything else you do. It's got to be done with some frequency. Right? You got to kind of stay on it. The other thing is you want to try to put it into the lowest point in the home. So if you have a downstairs toilet, that's a perfect place to introduce it. And because you'll get it into the lateral quickly, and you'll be able to put it out into the clay or wherever the roots are at, PVC sometimes as well, it'll affect it out there. If you run it from the second story, you might not get it in the concentration that you need to be effective.
Right.
So I tell folks, try to put it into as low as your home, and do it in a frequency like you change your furnace filter quarterly. Mm-hmm. Put a cup in. It's not going to hurt anything. It's not going to hurt the pipe.
No.
In that way, and again, have an annual inspection to make sure it's effective. That's the bottom line.
That's a great point. Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on. We're going to have to wrap this show up.
Okay.
We're going to have you come back out and talk more about the different systems out there that you do, and do some videos. So follow Chris and Seweroscopy. You say it. I just
Seweroscopy.
Yeah, I know. And I got this visual, and
it's effective.
It is effective, and it's just not fun.
No, it is.
But it's just not fun having a backed up drain, and that's just how important it is.
Absolutely.
To do this. Well, tell the folks, how can they find you?
Sure.
And spell your company name.
I will do that. So it's Sewer, Sewer -oscopy, OSCOPY. My name is Chris Schad, SCHAD. My telephone number is 314-703-3608. I'm pretty active on Facebook. You can find me out there under Sewer Lateral Inspections. And just, I put a lot of photos. I try to do a lot of PSAs and help folks that you don't want to have problems with this system, and that way it performs the way you need it to, and it doesn't ruin your day. But if you're having issues, feel free to give me a call, 314-703-3608.
You got a web page also?
I do. Seweroscopy.net.
All right. Well, and so let me give some cheap plugs for Chris here. I found him through referrals, and that's how he's word of mouth is the very best form of advertising, and that's how I discovered you, Chris. But then I discovered as he's a veteran. So, hey, and he's Marine Corps, just like myself. And us Marines, we stick together.
Yes, sir.
And, I got some others out there that have been on our show, Marines. So, hey, if no other reason you want the real McCoy, call the Marine.
Semper Fi, my friend.
Thank you so much, Chris. I really appreciate it. Hey, and folks, if we could ever be of service to you, Galloway Building Services, for any type of construction inspections or building inspections, or just a question of whether things are being done right, give us a call, 636-394-3112. You can find us out on Facebook under Galloway Building Services. You can also find this radio show called About the House out on Facebook, out on YouTube, and our webpage is www.Galloway Building Services. And we're going to have Chris's show out here on it. You could go to his page and find it. We're going to be out here sharing it. So give him a holler. If something don't smell right, give him a call. Thanks, folks. Have a great day.
All right, Troy. Thank you.
Sponsored by Troy Galloway and Galloway Building Services, your top choice for professional home inspections in the St. Louis area. GallowayBuildingServices.com.